so that people would know who I am. But yeah, my name's Kira. I'm happy to be the new assistant director here. So Lindsay and I will be kind of facilitating our preceptor workshop today. Um, and yeah, we're going to record for folks to watch later on. We can go ahead and get started, but we'd love to hear, yeah, we see some familiar names, but where y'all are coming from. If you wouldn't mind just in the chat, putting your name, the facility that you're coming from, and any questions that you might have for us throughout this training.
Awesome. Welcome in, everybody. So good to see the chat filling up. Hello. Hi, Jill. Good to see you. Yeah, folks from all over the state. Very good.
It's exciting for me. I've seen your names kind of in our preceptor like directory kind of, but it's exciting to be connecting with you all in this way. Wonderful.
And for folks who are just joining us, if you'd like to put your name and your location in the chat, we'd love to see who's here. Welcome.
Amazing.
Great.
All right. So we can kind of get oriented to what we'll be covering today. We'll be going through MDI specifics, just kind of what we've been up to as a program, and what we're hoping the students experience in our end this year. We'll go through a precepting timeline and when you can expect to hear from us. We'll go over some practices for precepting interns and, some considerations around where students might be coming from. If you're facing challenges with them with communication or assignments or anything like that. And then move on to a discussion, hearing from you all what works well for you in precepting, what maybe you find challenging, and then hopefully getting some feedback from you all at the end. So you have likely met Anna and Lindsay before. So yeah, like I said, I'm Kira. I'm originally from New Hampshire, so I did my schooling at the University of Vermont for undergrad, and the University of New Hampshire for my dietetic internship. Um, yeah, new to the assistant director position. I just started at the end of this June, so I've gotten the chance to go through the student orientations and interact with them and engage with them, which has been a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. My work previously was with eating disorders mostly, so it's kind of my background.
And Anna can't be with us today. She is out in the field with students for their Sustainable Food Systems rotation. So she is the Sustainable Food Systems preceptor. She's also director of our operations. And I'm Lindsay Ganong. I direct our graduate program and the clinical supervised practice. So it's really, really good to see you all. I am excited to connect with you and just want to thank you for your time today too. For those who are watching the recording and for those of you who are here, we know that this program is totally dependent on your work with interns, and we're really, really grateful for you. So thanks for being here. So we wanted to start out with orienting just a little bit to what programs MDI have to offer. So we have two pathways, and those are what we call the MSDI, or the Master of Science in Dietetic Systems Leadership and Dietetic Internship. And this program is 1 year of online work where folks are coming from all over the country, all over the world. And then in their second year, they come to Montana, and that's when we do that intensive couple-week internship where we're working on professional development. We're starting that sustainable food systems foundation, and then they're going into rotations with you all from there. We have a second pathway, which is the non-degree dietetic internship. And so this is for folks who already have a master's degree. In January of this year, in order to take the RD exam, the credentialing exam, a master's is required. So that has prompted a shift in the educational pathway. So we still hold that DI only option for folks who have a master's and also who have completed really specific coursework in that undergrad didactic program in dietetics. I wanted to let you all know too that part of this change in our dietetics pathway also includes what are called graduate programs. And so there are programs out there in the country where folks can enter a master's program with just prerequisite coursework, really similar to how physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy programs work. So there are programs out there that don't require that undergrad DPD didactic program and dietetics coursework anymore. And that's not the design of our program, but we just wanted to let you know that that's a new development and something that is out there in the educational model. The components of the program then. So for those who are in the MSDI pathway, they are doing coursework that first year. It's anywhere between 6 and 8 classes, depending on their model. Then in their second year, they're coming into that supervised practice, that dietetic internship, and that's 1,000 hours at least. And so that happens over 2 semesters, 36 weeks, where we're expecting that they're 35 to 40 hours a week in rotation with you all. And that's over a 4.5-day schedule. So last year we started doing MDI's class 1 day a week for a whole afternoon. And that gives students time to work on their professional project and also complete MDI specific assignments. And so this year class is on Wednesday afternoons, releasing students at noon, and they're in class from 1 to 4. And that includes advising with their research or professional project advisors, meeting with the MDI leadership team to help them through internship, as they progress. And for this year, it also includes writing studios to help with their writing on their professional project and developing their presentations that they will present at the Food and Nutrition Summit in the spring. So we're giving them lots of support during that class time. I also want to mention that sometimes there are experiences that are unique to your rotation. Maybe you're only with the intern a few weeks, and there's something that's happening during class that it's really important that they have an opportunity to engage with. Just reach out to us. We can likely work with the student on that, whether that's recording class with them or, as long as it's not something that we absolutely can't find a way to make up, we can normally kind of work with them. So don't be afraid to reach out if that kind of situation comes up. Yeah, I think that's just, we wanted to let y'all know what the program looks like now, and happy to take any questions throughout the whole training in the chat. Feel very welcome to pipe in there or raise a hand if you've got any questions throughout. Continuing with program updates, we are actually the class that just started in June, so we do still have a summer start. The 24-26 cohort, they are the 15th MDI class, and they are the 5th master's cohort, so are coming in and doing that 2-year MS plus DI. So MDI began in 2011. There were 14 interns then, and we went through a time of having 24 to 26 interns, and these next 2 cohorts are actually 18 interns, which is great. It's just part of the transition we're seeing in the educational model, and we are rolling strong with 18. We have 280 graduates, so 63 of those are from those 5 years of the MSDI program too. So we keep graduating lots of interns, lots of dietitians, which is excellent because there is a projected shortage of dietitians too. 5,000 RD shortage every year for the next 10 years in the US. So we want to keep producing high quality interns. We were one of the first and still remain one of the only programs with that focus in sustainable food systems. And with the expertise that our leadership team brings, we're also working on focus in weight inclusive care, Indigenous and rural health, and food access and community health. So one change we've made in the past 2 years is that interns are expressing and ranking their preferences before we actually build those rotations. And we're really trying to build more tailored experiences to the interns' interests. And that's something we're really excited about growing, and we'll keep you posted on how that continues to evolve. Well, thanks, Kira. Dietetics practice is shifting to, and health equity is actually one of our standards of professional performance. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has merged the scope of practice for dietitians and nutrition and dietetic techs. And they've merged the scope of practice with the standards of professional performance. And we just wanted to call out that striving for health equity, I'm still not sure why they use the word striving, but health equity is a focus for us. And that includes addressing social determinants of health, nutrition security, and food insecurity, as well as malnutrition, promoting sustainability practices, maintaining awareness of public health and community nutrition, and recognizing global food and nutrition. So this is the first way the Academy has really articulated this goal in this way. And you might notice that students are coming into practice with a sensitivity and higher awareness of social determinants of health. And those are the conditions where people are born, where they live, work, eat, play, and age. And so those are on the right side of the slide and include education, access to healthcare, the built environment or neighborhoods where people work and live, as well as financial security or economic resources and social connections. Those are the 5 domains that are often included. And so a lot of the work we do with them in orientation and throughout their coursework, they're learning how nutrition and food systems interplay and interact with these social determinants of health. So you'll probably notice that as they're coming into rotation. And that kind of plays into our next slide. Structural competency is this idea that it's an ability, it's a skill of health professionals to recognize and respond to health and illness as a result of broad social, political, and environmental, as well as economic structures. And it's a framework to addressing health-related social justice issues. So this is something we're trying to weave in as well. So we are starting them off in their second year orientation with systems thinking and doing some activities looking at structural competency, including historical context for how did we get here? And one way that we did this orientation was a trauma-informed nutrition care training. And in trauma-informed nutrition care, the trainer, Danae Beck, she's from Tumbleweed Nutrition. And thanks to lots of you who were able to attend that training just a few weeks ago, she said, instead of looking at a client saying, what's wrong with you, which isn't very goodwill forward, we say, what has happened to you? Trying to meet clients, patients where they're at, focusing on their life experiences in sort of this context of structural competency. So we also heard from dietetic interns, and we can move to the next slide, Kira, that they want to learn more about cultural humility and cultural competency. And so part of this is weight inclusive care. They are getting, for the MSDIs, a whole course in what's called critical thinking, research, and evidence-informed practice. And in that course, they're actually looking at the primary data to see for a given health condition or experience, whether that's sports, whether that's insulin resistance or diabetes, or I can't think of any of the other ones off the top of my head, but they're looking at the evidence to see, is weight loss actually an effective treatment for this condition? So they're doing their own investigations. In this class, they're specifically being addressed to social determinants of health and what we call weight science too. During orientation, we did a weight inclusive care teach-in where we're sort of looking at the spectrum of weight inclusive care as also with weight normative care. So the way our medical system is currently designed, and that weight is an outcome we're often looking at. So we're having conversations about what are some idealized, really inclusive frameworks, and what also is the reality that we're seeing in practice. Several students have focused their professional projects on some of these questions of weight inclusive care as well. And like I said, this fits into some of the new competencies that the Academy has come out with. And I just have maybe 2 or 3 more slides on our updates for the program. So we're moving through here. So some of those clinical nutrition care competencies are to observe and describe a bedside nasoenteric tube feeding insertion. So these are competencies that will stand from 2022 to 2027, and every 5 years they'll be updated. So at this point, it says observe and describe that bedside tube feeding placement. We anticipate that entry level will actually move towards actually being able to place that tube. We don't have to do that before 2027, but we'll see what the new standards are in 2027. Also, routine health screenings came out in 2022. So point of care labs doing finger sticks for blood glucose, could also be cholesterol or blood lipid measurements. They have to learn a manual blood pressure measurement and also make recommendations for nutrition-related pharmacotherapy. So we're doing these things with them, as well as a swallow screen, that's a new one, and teaching blood glucose monitoring. This is a picture of our clinical workshop this year. We still do a 2-day clinical workshop with them where they get to practice dropping NG tubes on mannequins. They are doing a manual blood pressure on themselves with a nurse trainer. They are making recommendations for carb to insulin ratio changes based on a case study patient. And these are things that will continue to provide in their orientation, as we know that the rollout of these new skills has not fully happened in practice settings, and we'll continue to find ways to offer preceptors opportunity to learn these things too, like at our state conference, like the workshop we did in April in Billings. So we'll keep bringing you this new information as it's asked of us to be teaching it. And finally, the last 2 new competencies that came up were cultural humility. And so they were to show cultural humility in interactions with colleagues, staff, clients, patients, and the public, and to implement culturally sensitive strategies to address cultural biases and differences. So cultural humility asks a practitioner to be aware of their own implicit biases and continue that as an ongoing practice. And it also asks us here in 2.12 to implement culturally responsive or sensitive strategies. And that really requires practitioners to know, of course, the cultural context which they're practicing and the cultural context of their patients too. So we are doing a lot of that work in orientation. This year, we did the Healthcare Allies training with Bridger Care. So that is an LGBTQIA plus allies training, looking at that cultural context, how to serve that community. And we also go out to the Buffalo Nation's Food Systems Initiative gardens to hear from the Buffalo Nation's fellows and sort of their perspectives on the work they're doing on the land here in the Bozeman area. And we will just continue to work on this as an initiative for students. And you'll probably just notice that they're bringing a lot of those sensitivities again into their rotations, and they're really curious. And many of them are really interested in learning how to identify with their own social identity and learn how to be more cross-cultural practitioners too with the cultures they're coming across in practice. So those are the final Ascend competencies we wanted to orient you to in this 22 to 27 year. And like I said, we'll keep letting you know as those are published and what's changing in the profession. And MDI has taken some time in the last year to also identify some of our own values. So I wanted to share those with you too. And then we'll transition into what Kira has to share with us today. So MDI has identified 4 primary values to challenge students to discover and develop their passions. And that really comes through when they have choice in some of their sustainable food systems assignments, their hot topic presentation, as well as their professional projects, which works out super well. Last spring, they got to present at the state conference, and they were just some of the really best presentations I think we've seen from the interns, because they're bringing a lot of that passion into their inquiry. And we've really built in quite a bit of time for them to do that. Nurturing whole person, self, and professional development. We recognize that as an MDI leadership team, we want to support their skill development and also their professional growth. So we are teaching growth mindset in orientation too, this idea that we're all learners, and helping to take students out of the judger mindset and into what opportunities they have to grow and accept feedback. And we also want to support you all in giving students the best chance to learn and grow. So that's also embedded in that value. The third one, practice and cultivate transdisciplinary inquiry and systems thinking. So this is where we want to have future dietitians who are thinking interdisciplinarily and across disciplines for those solutions that we really need. And fourth, act with integrity to build a more just, inclusive, and livable future. And this is where we are hoping to reach all those most marginalized communities with our work, and where that sustainable food systems piece comes into. And that's where a lot of our emerging focus areas are coming into, where we're just trying to prepare students to meet the world with their best, with those highest needs we're seeing in the world today too. So I think that kind of brings us to the next slide then, that our values, you are an inherent part of this as well. And so I hope that this update has given you a little more context of where the program is, and we'll kind of move into the preceptor workshop from here.
Wonderful. Yeah, so we'll go over some strategies around precepting interns. And yeah, just some context to this is recently I had attended a training with the Center for Medical Simulation. Um, in order for us to kind of try to bolster that clinical workshop and those hands-on skills to prepare interns to be as ready as they can be when they get to their intern rotation sites with you all. And so this is something that we've found helpful in the program, just in interacting with interns, this approach. And yeah, that's kind of the background for it. Lindsay, did you have a poll, did you say, or?
Oh, I did. I forgot about the poll. I just got right.
Okay.
So we did want to see how long you all had been precepting. And so I just need to find that window on my screen. Uh-oh. Do you see it, Kira? I had it up and it's disappeared.
I don't see it from my end. I
Okay.
can keep looking though. Oh, okay. Yeah,
I,
so we've got two polls here.
yeah, one on the bottom, the length of precepting. There we go. Yep.
Yes. Awesome.
Excellent. And this is precepting for MDI. We know that several of you precept, maybe even other disciplines, but also students from other programs. We're curious. How long have you been a preceptor? Can y'all see the poll? No.
And it to
Oh, there we go.
share the results.
Okay.
Yeah, so about half of you have been involved with MDI for 1 to 3 years, and a quarter have been involved more than 10 years. That's really incredible. Wow. And then we've got some everywhere in between. Yeah. So in the discussion portion of this, I'm excited to hear, yeah, just what you've experienced being involved with students for more than 10 years. Mhm. Okay. And then we've got a question, another poll. Um, was this one for right now, Lindsay, or?
We can do that one.
Okay,
Yes.
amazing. Thank you. Thanks for keeping me oriented. Um, yeah, so this is a educational model. I know it doesn't look like it just looks like a bunch of emotions. And that is what it is. But something that we value in the program is psychological safety. So you may have heard that term before, but it's just the idea that we want students to feel safe enough to embrace the unknown, embrace being uncomfortable, and really be able to lean into the learning experiences that you provide them. Um, it's been demonstrated that when students do feel safe psychologically in the learning environment, that they are able to tolerate, practicing more at the edge of their ability. So they're pushing themselves more, they're more able to appreciate feedback, to reflect on their own skills and problem solving, to self-correct from that and learn from their mistakes. So there's a lot more tolerance and openness that they experience when they feel psychologically safe. And so just to orient you to this graphic, as you can see, there's an axis of activation, and an axis of unpleasant and maybe more pleasant emotions. So the idea is that we really want students to be activated, not falling asleep and, yeah, not being disengaged in their learning, but really being activated in a pleasant way of being, excited, alert, able to take in new information. So these are some ideas and ways to create psychological safety within a learning environment. Um, some ideas that we have, of, just active listening that allows for a lot more buy-in from the students. Having clear expectations, objectives, and roles, which, we have seen you all do beautifully with orienting students to the learning environment and being in this new space. And we know a lot of you have really short periods of time with them too, which can be challenging. And just respect for learners, and then with good judgment, which is the approach that we'll kind of go over in the next few slides. And I'm curious if anyone would like to pop into the chat and say just when they've felt safe in a learning environment, any sort of things they feel might be helpful in creating psychological safety in that environment. Wonderful. Inclusivity. Yeah, absolutely. Helping people to feel safe to show up as who they are. Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, and that's great to hear from Jill that, the students have been open and curious. Good communication from Morgan. Yeah. Help when the interns know what to expect. Yeah. Accepting everyone as enough. I love that. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, everybody. Um, yeah, so we like to operate from this basic assumption, which is that we at MDI believe that everyone is intelligent, capable, doing their best, and wants to improve, whether that's our team, students, faculty, and preceptors alike. So kind of, yeah, just assuming the best of the students, yeah, can allow them to show up and kind of take down some defenses that might otherwise come up. Yeah. Yeah, and from Emma making it clear it's all right to make mistakes. Yeah, allowing them to share their knowledge too. Yeah, I learned from them all the time. So these are some examples of different kind of learning theories or ways that we might approach interns and giving them feedback. So if we look at the left-hand side, there's harsh judgment, and this kind of operates from these places of assuming that we're right, that the interns or students are wrong, um, that there's a right answer, that if we tell them, you know, firmly that they'll change as they need to meet these competencies, and that, they need to be aware of where they're lacking their incompetence. So, understandable to approach it in that way sometimes if we maybe have fears around them not getting the experience they need or things like that. In the middle here, there's hidden judgment, which feels like where a lot of education lies, of it's still coming from this place of that there is a right answer, and we want to lead the students to that right answer. So oftentimes it can kind of feel confusing for students in this kind of guess what I'm thinking um, approach. And it's also been referred to as the Socratic method. So yeah, having this answer that we want to lead students to. And it can also look like a compliment feedback sandwich. So I know that um, even myself, I don't want to give too harsh a feedback. And so sometimes it can feel better, easier on my end just to be like, you did a great job, and here's something to work on. And you did a great job, though. Maybe wanting to soften the blow. So the idea of good judgment is that, you know, instead of having this idea that there is a single right answer, we kind of generate curiosity around why the student didn't meet the standard that we had in mind. So we look at where they were coming from in that situation, what kind of was on their mind. It operates from the assumption that we both have a legitimate take on the situation. So they maybe weren't aware of what our standard was, what we wanted them to how we wanted them to perform in that situation. And it operates off of the basic assumption. So just that they're doing their best, they want to improve, and that there might be other things going on. So these are some examples just to, you know, provide some more context for it. Harsh judgment in the dietetics world might sound like you didn't get their diet recall. What were you doing up there? And these are kind of more patient-centered examples, patient care-centered examples, but I feel this framework can, be applicable to any sort of profession. So, um, or also harsh judgment might sound like that's not really how we do things here. Whereas hidden judgment, or harsh, yeah, the harsh judgment has kind of that apparent judgment in the tone of voice or the words or language that we're choosing. The hidden judgment, it's more hidden, as it says. So it might sound like that was good. What should we do differently next time? So kind of prompting them to, think about this standard that we have for them and how they might achieve it. Another example could be good job with your nonverbal cues. Why might we need to change what we ask them next time if you're helping a student, move through a diet recall with a patient? And then good judgment sounds something like this. So it might sound like, how do you feel that patient interview went? So you know, checking in with them, seeing where they were operating from. I noticed you didn't get their diet recall. So being clear and neutral in our observations with the students. Ask saying, I was hoping to see you ask follow-up questions about the amounts they eat throughout the day. So being clear about our expectations about what we were hoping to see, and then giving some context of, you know, I was worried if you didn't do that, we might miss some critical information from the patient, and we might not get to the bottom of what was contributing to their digestive system symptoms. So the with good judgment approach, this is kind of the framework of that you might use when providing feedback to students or debriefing them on a situation with a patient or client or meeting. So yeah, again, checking in with them. How do you feel that went? Sharing the observations neutrally, asking them, what were you thinking in that moment? You know, a lot of times things might feel really obvious to us of like, of course you should ask them the amounts of food that they're eating. And it could be that, you know, they're stressed or, you know, they were thinking they had to get different information from the patient or client. Um, Next, expressing concerns about what they may have missed, and how that might impact outcomes with the community, with patients, etc. And then being clear about expectations, what you're wanting them to learn and what you're wanting them to get from the situation. So we have a kind of case study or discussion here, um, where I'd love to, yeah, see from you all how you might handle this situation. Um, you know, it might be a situation that you've had with a student from MDI in the past, and how you might use the good judgment method to approach this. So this example, Mike is a student in his third clinical rotation. His current rotation is the medical surgical rotation. You found that he's only able to assess 2 to 3 patients in a day. Often the assessments lack the necessary information to make an accurate nutrition diagnosis and assessment of nutrition status. Because of the fast pace of the unit, he often appears overwhelmed. You've observed he's unable to respond to questions presented by medical staff or situations promptly. Tensions have been building, and you, as the preceptor, are beginning to lose patience. But we can take a few moments here just to kind of collect our thoughts, reflect on this. Maybe, yeah, you're reflecting on similar situations you've had with students. And then in just a few moments, I'd love if anyone wanted to turn their camera on and share, or if you want to drop anything into the chat about how you might approach this.
This is Emily from OPI. I'm not in clinical, but I think one of the first things that I would do is just ask them how they feel like things are going or how they're doing. It's clear that they probably have a lot of stress and are feeling not like they're probably not meeting expectations as well. So allowing them to kind of voice their concerns and see what areas are really troubling them. Hopefully that can help you identify like ways that you can further support them and maybe make expectations clearer for them. But hopefully that's a way point them in the right direction without placing any judgment on them.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Emily. So yeah, it sounds like kind of just keeping it open-ended of checking in with them, seeing how they feel the rotation is going and how their performance is. And Sherry in the chat says they do an end of week check-in to allow time for self-reflection. Yeah, what do you think went well this week? What did you struggle with and how can I help? Yeah, I love that. Just prompting them to do that self-reflection piece, which yeah, is also a competency for them. Being able to check in with themselves and see how they're doing against the standards.
And this is Kelsey up in Missoula at St. Pat's. And we definitely see this type of scenario quite often. And I think even though, especially in Mike's case, it is his third clinical rotation, it sounds like he's new to the med surge floor. And so kind of just, yeah, starting off with that self-reflection to see how he's feeling, but also understand that it's a new patient population. So you might just have to break it down into smaller bites and see kind of what he's struggling with, maybe adjust the goals and just kind of go back to the beginning for a few days until kind of get his bearings and get more comfortable on the floor, and then kind of turn up the notch and go a little faster.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Kelsey. Yeah, I love what you're saying about breaking it down into smaller bites. And it sounds like, yeah, just kind of considering the context of, yeah, we might have some assumptions around where the student should be at it being his third clinical rotation and thinking in the greater context of what, clients or situations he has seen and what might be completely new for him. Yeah.
Hey, this is Morgan with Bozeman Health. Sometimes I'll ask, I'll ask for permission to give the intern some feedback, or I'll ask them to demonstrate to me how they are using the EHR. So I do that a lot with interns. I'll say, can you show me, where you're finding this or that, and not in a judgmental way at all, but I think sometimes interns are afraid to ask something more than once. And so if they've asked you a few times, they might feel like they can't ask again. Or they might not understand how to navigate the templates that we use. And I think if we assume positive intent, but then we want to make sure that they can use the tools that they have.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Morgan. Um, yeah, it sounds like you approach that with just genuine curiosity, like, okay, yeah, yeah, show me how you do this. And yeah, just I definitely can understand the fear of asking questions more than once. And it sounds like you're really considering where they're coming from in that situation. Yeah. Any other thoughts about this situation? It seems like a common one in clinical settings. Um, yeah. Cherry says, I like to remind interns that questions are not viewed as incompetence. Asking questions is a sign of interest and eagerness to learn. To Sherry, yeah. Yeah, kind of really cultivating that curiosity in the students. Wonderful. Thank you to everyone who shared. Yeah, so when we are able to pause with students and kind of ask them what was going through your mind in that moment, or when we're able to approach them with curiosity in that way, it really gives us the opportunity to see where they're coming from, and get curious about their frames. So these might be assumptions that they have that maybe, yeah, they assume that if they ask where to find this in the EHR again, that you'll be mad or that, it won't be okay. Um, Another type of frame might be what they're feeling, if they're super stressed, if they've have personal things going on at home that could be impacting their performance, or maybe it's just the stress of being in a hospital when they never have been before, or in having to speak in meetings, which they haven't had to do in the past as well. We can also get a feel for their goals for the rotation, their goals for, being a dietitian or a nutrition or food professional, any sort of rules that they might have in their brain, their knowledge base. So if, we might just learn that they never learned how to do that one thing that you're asking of them. That was something that was missed in their education. And then that's good for us at MDI to know as well. And yeah, just the situation, the context that they're coming from, if it's their, a new patient population they're dealing with, a new environment, those sorts of things. And we're able to really see how these frames impact their actions, and then how that in turn impacts their performance or results, it's called here. And there are some, frames that we've noticed with students, and that's different learning styles. So, some being more visual learners, some being more auditory learners, and yeah, maybe challenges that they face in those contexts. The length of rotation kind of, a lot of you see students for only 2 weeks or so, which is super quick, for both of you, right? And that they might be still settling into the space by the time that they're leaving and going on to their next rotation. A lot of our students are also new to Montana, so a lot of them are maybe feeling homesick or don't know how to navigate these rural spaces, or, the culture that we have within Montana and different places within the state. And since the pandemic, we've really seen an increase in stress and anxiety among students, and, particularly in graduate school, they're feeling overwhelmed. Imposter syndrome is a big thing in grad school, of feeling like, they might not belong or be smart enough to be here, things like that. And those feelings can really, really creep up for them, and present themselves in the ways that they act in rotations. Um, yeah. Any other frames that you have in mind, Lindsay, that you've noticed?
Well, I just wanted to speak up because as an educator, we're not often taught to be educators. And I think same with preceptors. Some of us come into it naturally, but there's not necessarily a course, right? So we want to recognize that. And the common assumption I've had, I've often been in that hidden judgment frame where I'm sort of leading students to an answer. And if they're not getting it, I'm trying to tell them what the right answer is. So that would assume the frame is that their knowledge base is insufficient. But here we have like 6 other options of like things that might be going on, that it's not even necessarily that they don't know the right answer. And so that's why I really appreciate Kira bringing this up, that the good judgment allows us to really focus on more open-ended questions and see what's happening, so that we can employ whatever solutions seem sensible to get to the result that we're all going for. I think the other cool thing about it is once you ask them open-ended questions, you can still let the student know what the expectation is and reiterate that. And it just helps having like clear communication. Because one of the things that we've heard from preceptors is that delivering feedback can be a challenge. So this is just like one more way to have that continuous feedback loop with students too.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, I appreciate what you said around, there's still being expectations and things that they need to meet. It's, how we approach it, and that we're clear about it and don't keep it kind of hidden and yeah, in the background, but that we're really upfront with them about it. I'm curious, before we kind of move on to the precepting timeline, how this lands with folks, if you have any questions, or yeah, if you've heard of good judgment before as well. If you want to speak out loud or drop it in the chat, and then we'll do a poll as well.
Hey, this is Morgan again. Here I am talking. One of the things that I feel like is really helpful for our interns to not feel judged is for us to be humble and forthcoming with our own shortcomings. So being able to say when we don't know something or when we don't do something right. I often give interns examples of times when I was kind of earlier in my career or those type of mistakes that I made, just to show them that that's normal. Because I think sometimes when they jump in with an RD who's been practicing for 10 years, they think that that's where they have to be. And that's certainly not our expectation. So we kind of try to relate to them that way too.
Totally. Yeah, thanks, Morgan. I think it's pretty common for interns to, I know myself as an intern, I saw all the dietitians that I went through rotations with. I was like, they know everything. They have to, right? Like, and so yeah, it's really nice to, yeah, just kind of be like, yeah, we all started entry level and that's where you'll get as well. And, you know, um, yeah, I certainly don't know everything about nutrition. Wonderful. Yeah, I think it can feel like a more collaborative way to engage with interns sometimes as well, or students is, versus like, here's the right answer, I'm gonna lead you to it. It's like, okay, how can we kind of solve this problem together? How can we get to that point of competence together? Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like for Sherry, it's having you reflect on experiences as an intern, what you thought was hard, letting them know that too. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we've got another question for you all. Um, just kind of to wrap up this good judgment approach. Yeah, I'll give a few moments and then share those results. Right. Yeah, so the good judgment approach is that bottom one that says curiosity around why the student didn't meet the standard. The guess what I'm thinking and compliment sandwich are more of those hidden judgment approaches. Um, and a funny piece of the compliment sandwich is that's what I was taught in grad school was like how to give feedback was that was a great way to give feedback because it helps people maybe feel seen in what they did well and what they need to work on. And sometimes it can lead to some confusion around like, okay, did I do a good job or did I do a bad job? Or like, yeah, it can lead to confusion with the students. And it's very well intentioned, of course. And then, yeah, the I'm right, you are wrong is both harsh judgment and hidden judgment, assuming that there's a right answer. Awesome. Thank you all for participating in that. All right. Moving on.
Just wanted to offer a model that I learned somewhat recently that might be a helpful way to approach students. So On the top, we see D4 down to D1, and D1 would be our most beginning learners. They would have low competence, meaning they're learning a new skill or task, but they have high commitment. They are excited and ready to learn. D2, they are showing some competence. They're growing in competence. So that's the progression between D1 to D4, but their commitment is lower because they've started experiencing some challenges as they try something new. D3, they are growing in their competence, but their commitment is variable. They might be super frustrated some days, or they might be really excited about it. And then D4, they've made it. They have got the skill down. They're committed, they know they can do it, and they're confident about it. And something cool about this model is knowing where students are at on a given task can give us as leaders 4 different approaches that we can come at them with for these tasks. So the red matches with the red. If they are just beginning on a skill, we might have to be highly directive. If they are starting to build some, if they're in that D2, we would still want to be directive. So further to the right in this orange box, but we also might need to be more highly supportive, acknowledging, listening, and encouraging. As they get more competent and move over into the D3, the yellow, we might not need to be as directive. They might be getting it, but we might need to ask a lot more questions and offer a lot more encouragement because they're feeling discouraged some days. And then maybe towards the end of a long rotation, we're actually delegating things to them where they don't need as many check-ins and they don't need as much direction. So this is a really quick introduction to this model, but it's a way to do situational leadership that again is based on every skill or goal you're giving them. They might need different levels of direction and support. So I hope that this might be something helpful to y'all, and feel free to reach out if you'd like some more on it too, but just wanted to give it as a tool you might use. Then we'll get into the preceptor timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a general overview of when you can expect to hear from us and the students. So in about January or the winter of each year, you'll hear from us to propose different timelines for students to come and hang out with you all. So that's when you might agree to a precepting schedule. And between then and getting closer to the school year, hearing from Anna and doing HR onboarding. So if you're in those facilities that need, different documentation from students, that's kind of the time frame that you might hear from us for that. And then moving into the planning and preparation phase. So, considering any sort of pre-learning that you might want students to do if it's a more specialized population that you're working with, or an environment you feel that they could use some orienting to, giving them any sort of articles or learning materials for that can help really set them up for success. It might be an idea where we're communicating about project ideas, things of that nature, and coming up with welcome materials plans for the time frame that the students are with you all. And then 2 weeks prior to the interns rotation with you all, they should send an email out to you introducing themselves, asking any questions they might have about how to show up for the first day. So how to get to the facility, what kind of dress they need to wear, how professional they might need to dress, or if you're one of our sustainable food systems preceptors, maybe that they need closed-toed shoes or farm appropriate attire and things like that. And then the intern's first day, this is when you'll have a welcome meeting with them, kind of go over expectations, and they can tell you of any competencies that they may need to meet. at this point having your Trajexis registration set up if it's not already. And if you are able to stay on and would like to troubleshoot or do a tutorial for Trajexis, we're happy to. And want to be mindful of the time. And yeah, if anyone needs to hop off, certainly do, as this is what we had set aside for time. And we appreciate you all coming. After, throughout the rotation, after the intern's first day, we're hopeful that, it can be collaborative and you can provide feedback throughout. Whether that's formal or informal, you have meetings with them. I know that can be hard to make time for. So in any way that you're able to is great. And then in the final week of their rotation, around then having a verbal feedback meeting. So going through that Trajexis evaluation with them and kind of the justifications for the scores that you provided them with, and doing more of that summative feedback. So how you've maybe seen them change throughout the rotation and what they've learned and how they've grown with you. And then in the summer and the fall is when you'll likely hear from me. Some of you may have heard from me this morning or in the past couple of days, receiving that feedback that interns provide you on how their experience was at your facility and any projects they might have ideas for, things like that. Anything you feel I missed, Lindsay?
No, I think, site visits. So that's something that didn't make it on the slide, but our goal is to be meeting with each of you every other year at least on site visits. We've really, since the transition last summer, where Anna and I came into the director, co-director positions, we've really been trying to see everyone. We know we haven't made it out there. And it turns out, so it might take us 2 years to see everyone, and then we'll just sort of start again. So it'll be in every other year is our goal. And if you need to see us sooner than later, the door is always open. We want to stay in close contact with you all. And
Wonderful.
yeah, we do have 15 minutes left to work on Trajexis troubleshooting. So I can do some screen share. We can talk with anyone who's got questions on that, because I know we said we'd go till 12:45. But for anyone who has their Trajexis down or doesn't have any other questions, that'll wrap up sort of this portion of the presentation too. So we're so grateful that you joined us. We'll have a recording of this. And yeah, if you have any questions at all, stay on, or if you want to look at some Trajexis. So if you're a new preceptor, yeah, please stay on, Denise. We'll talk through that piece and we can troubleshoot for anyone who had any trouble with Trajexis last year. Cool. The link's also in the chat if you prefer that instead of the QR code. Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Madeline. Thanks everyone for being here. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, it was wonderful to connect with some of you all, even if it is on Zoom. But we'll see you soon at Safe Visits.
Great. Well, I can screen share then, starting with Denise, just showing sort of what Trajexis is all about and getting through that part of the intro. And then folks just pipe up as you have questions too. I'm getting the screen share up. Okay. So I'll just start from the beginning. We have, if you just search Trajexis registration, it will bring you to, and this is a little bit narrow, I'll bring it out. It will bring you to the same registration that students and preceptors alike use. So you would start typing Montana, and you can feel free to go along with this with me as we're doing it. So Montana State University MDI. put your first name and your last name. What's his name? Champ, the Bobcat. Make this fun. Important thing for preceptors is you definitely want to say, no, you're not a current student, or we'll get charged for you. And then your workplace, you can put however you want to write it. So maybe you're at the HRDC, Gallatin Valley Food Bank. What we will do then is, as directors, we get a notification and we'll match you with the site we've created on the back end. So it doesn't really matter what you write there as long as it's recognizable to us, so we can match you with your site. Montana is your area. Then you'll create a username and password. So Bobcat Champ 2024 or whatever, create your own password, confirm that. And then if you ever forget your password, you can reset it anytime as long as you know your username. And we can actually look up your username for you. That's the important part of that forgotten password. So if you do forget your username, no worries, you can email us and ask, but that's the essential bit you'll need to get a temporary password and reset your password if you forget it. So go through your home zip or work zip, doesn't really matter to us, primary phone. Email is what they'll use to verify your account and to send you a password if needed. So make sure that's an email you can get to. And otherwise, we don't take really much, like the primary phone information we may take from here for the preceptor contact list, but we'll double check with you first before sharing that with interns. So that's how you would register. If I want to log in, once you get in the preceptor login, I would choose my site. And what this does is this allows you then to see any student who has logged into your site in the last 120 days. So students will log in, and then that way, when you go ahead and do their evaluation, for example, if you're in community rotation, you would go to evaluations, choose intern feedback and evaluation. You would do this like at the end, before the end of their rotation. You should be able to choose any intern who's clocked into that site in the last 120 days. And any preceptor at that site should be able to select them. So if you're at a site with several preceptors, one person can do that eval. Everyone who's precepted the intern can do the eval, or several preceptors can funnel their feedback up to one person who does the report. The benefit of everyone who's worked with the intern registering in Trajexis and doing their own eval is that then the intern can give preceptor feedback for all the preceptors. They could do a separate report for each one because they'll be able to select any preceptor in their dropdown. So these, you can put NA for anyone that you didn't observe or the intern didn't practice with you. If you, the scale up here is early beginner for 1, beginner for 2, 3 is like, this is what we would expect for an entry level intern. 4 is they're doing really, really well. 5 is like amazing. So what we look for is that by the end of the year, interns have a 3 minimum in every competency. So if they're early on in their internship year with you, maybe they're still getting some 1s and 2s. If at the bottom here, they're getting an overall 1 or 2, that's going to be a scenario where the directors and the preceptor and the intern are probably going to want to meet and see how can we help the intern grow from this. And so if you're anticipating, oh, this is looking like an overall 2, like the intern's just really not making it in this rotation, always much better to reach out earlier than later. And our team is super happy to facilitate some of the conversations or just support you however you might need. If you want to have that conversation with the intern, but want to talk through it with us first, there's lots of different ways that can go. If you choose a 1 or a 2 for any of these, it will force you to put a comment in, and you're welcome to give comments for any of the others too. And it's really wonderful to fill out the strengths and ways that they can improve too. I think it just really helps them to continue to grow and progress. And you'll notice there are skills here, these competencies, but there's also a lot of professional development items here. So just recognizing that we are helping interns grow as professionals into roles as dietitians and professionals, and also those specific skills that it takes. So we're just anticipating that they'll need coaching, support, and direction across those scopes. At the bottom as well, it asks, I reviewed the competency activity record within the MDI supervised practice planning sheet. So what this means, so I can hit check this to submit it later, and I can hit submit. And then when I come back, I can come back to this exact eval. But there should also be, let's see, because of the one I clocked into, here, reports, completed evaluations forms. We can look at the students' selves and competency tracker. Okay, I can't do it here because the student who's clocked into the site hasn't done hers yet. But the students will submit, and I can show you on a different form. I can show you in our admin panel. They will be doing their own eval. And I'll pull up what it looks like here. So the student is going to be going through every single competency available to them, which there are 50. And if in their rotation, so we could pick, if I was really logged in, I could pick the site, and they can put the activity that they did in which they got to demonstrate selecting indicators of program quality or customer service. So maybe they did their quality assurance assignment with you, and they'll get to go through, rate themselves on that same scale, and put the activity in. And you should have activity or access to this report as soon as they complete it. And that could help you to understand, oh, how are they understanding what they did with me? What competencies do they think that they completed? It goes all the way through all 5 domains of competencies too. And we use this form for a different purpose. We use this form so that the interns have an activity matched with each competency by the end of their rotation. And then we use the feedback and eval that you're providing to ensure that they got at least a 3. But there's no expectation that the intern's self-rating and your ratings match. So don't worry about that. It's more of an indicator of what activities they're seeing as having demonstrated competencies. Finally, you will also have an assignments item here where you will see that a quality assurance assignment here. That's what I need to go in as a preceptor. So if you go into assignments, you'll see if clinical case and evidence-based practice presentation, their clinical staff relief, in-service, or quality assurance. So these are assignments that MDI assigns the intern. They may or may not do them at your rotation, but if they do, this is where you can do that eval. Otherwise, the only required eval is that you do either a clinical, community, or food service management eval, talk about it with them before they're done. And if they do choose to do their self-selected rotation with you, that's a 2-week rotation in April. This is the specific one. It has some specific competencies in there that we're looking for to do instead of one of these other. So you only have to choose one. If you don't perfectly fit in one or the other, you can decide for yourself, or you can ask us if that'd be helpful. But that's the one eval. And then in the same platform is where interns will do preceptor evaluations. And then we, like Kira said, combine those, de-identify them, and get them back out to you annually. So now would be a great time to troubleshoot or ask any questions you may have about the Church Access platform. We also have a manual that just kind of goes through everything I just talked about. So if you don't have access to that yet, please let us know. I'm happy to send it. And, I may just attach it to this follow-up email. Oh, there's a hand up. Emma.
Yeah, if you could send this to me, that would be really great. I'm running into an issue where Trajectus is like, oh, you already exist because I was an intern.
A student? Yeah.
I'm thinking if I'm logged in under a different, like if I clear browsing data, it will be fine and I use my HRDC.
Use your other
But,
email.
yeah.
That should help. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great strategy. Is there a follow-up, Emma, or you think that'll work?
I think that'll work. I just wanted to stick around to see if anything had changed about Trajectus since I used it last year, but it seems pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for doing that. Any other questions out there? Okay.
Hi, Lindsay. This is Erin with OPI School Nutrition.
Hi, Erin.
Hey, I might have missed where you showed where the interns' competencies are that they fill out. How did you access that, or do we access that as well to
You
see what
can.
they think they did? Okay.
It will actually be in your reports. Like it will have a little alert for you once they do it because it'll notify you. Unfortunately, I haven't had no interns have done them yet.
Oh, fair enough. I didn't see it last year, so
Show it to you on here, but it will show up in your reports where you shouldn't even have to pull the report. It should just be like, there's a report for you to look at, and that's where you should be able to see the competency.
thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could make it look right, but maybe I'll add that to the PDF too, once I can get a version of it, screenshot it.
Nice. And
Yeah.
Emma, did you intern through us a couple years ago? Your name looks familiar. Just curious. Emma Smith.
I interned last year with you. I think you might remember me because you were helping me process my administrative review travel reimbursement.
Oh, yes. I hope you finally received that. That was kind of a pain. I'm sorry about that.
I love it.
I've not gotten it yet, but I spoke to Erin last week and I'm confident it'll come any day now.
Okay, good. And are you also working with HRDC, their new summer program person? I thought I saw your name maybe from that as well.
Yes, I am their new childhood nutrition programs coordinator. So summer lunch, kids pack, and some other fundraising efforts and
Awesome.
For.
Awesome. Welcome. Sorry to bring that up. Just thought I'd ask.
Love it. That's great. Yeah, thank you both for your questions. I see Patty's here too. Patty, do you have any questions before we sign off? Okay. Well, we'll get this.
No, I'm sorry. I was on the wrong button. No, I don't. I'm just making sure I get it. I am not a techie at all.
Well, you did great last year, and I'm sure Grace will lend a helping hand if you have any questions this year too.
Okay, the only reason I did great is because the intern showed me how to do it.
That's a great model.
Okay. And thanks, you guys. It was wonderful.
Oh, thanks, Patty.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, really good to see you all. All right. Well, we'll wrap up for now, and please take the eval if you haven't yet, and we'll get the recording out in a follow-up email.
Okay, so wait, Lindsay, where's the eval if I didn't use the QR, whatever that code is?
Well, I'll try to put it in the chat once more.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Totally. There it goes in the chat. Do you see it there?